Hi, I'm Sally and I work for a company called Plush Folly. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a range of homemade cosmetics. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make lye soap. We need two main sets of ingredients, and that's our oils and butters and our lye itself. Now, lye is also known as sodium hydroxide and caustic soda, and it can be obtained just in the drain cleaning section of your hardware store. Technically it's not lye until it's mixed with our water here, and I'm just using regular tap water. Let's look at our oils. Olive oil because it creates a beautifully moisturising bar of soap. Palm oil adds a lovely waxy texture and a good feel to your soap. Coconut's responsible for creating big bubbles. We'll have a lovely lather on this soap. And my favourite finally, shea butter, which is like pouring a bottle of moisturising lotion into your soap. Be really creamy and moisturising. But the most important bit, we cannot make our soap without the sodium hydroxide and the water, our lye. The water I have here is just water from my tap. Although you could use bottled water, water from the tap will make just as good soap. I'm going to weigh the water because I need 176 grams. Now, 176 grams is exactly the same as 176 mils, but if I'm looking at the scale on the display on the scales, then it's easier for me to be absolutely accurate. 178, a little bit too far. There we are, perfect. But trying to work out where 176 is using the scale would be very difficult for me, and I need to be accurate. Put that to one side while I work on the sodium hydroxide. For this recipe, I need 70 grams of sodium hydroxide, and I'm going to weigh it into my little bowl. So, it's a fairly innocuous looking white powder. It looks pretty much like salt that you might sprinkle onto your food, but it's not the same. There we are, 70 grams. And now very carefully, without breathing the fumes, I'm going to pour my sodium hydroxide into the water. Now technically at this point, this is now called lye because it is an alkali solution. I stir it round to make sure it's fully dissolved and there's no gritty bits at the bottom. And as I'm doing this, the temperature of the water is increasing. It'll get very, very hot and it will let off some fumes, and they're not very pleasant should you swallow them. So I always recommend that once you've made your lye, you just put it to one side while you work on the oils. That's getting too hot to touch underneath. Now it's time to weigh the oils and butters and get them into our saucepan to melt. I'm going to add them in any order, but palm oil is going in first. Palm oil is our ingredient that adds that lovely waxy hardness to our soap. And for this recipe, I need 85 grams of palm oil. We're making about 6 bars of soap here. So I need roughly 600 grams in total. So, 85 into our saucepan. Our coconut oil, very moisturising, but I use it because it creates big, rich, foaming soap, a lovely lather. Okay, we need more coconut oil than we use palm oil, and we are going to be using 128 of coconut oil. Ooh, 122. add it to the palm, and then finally the lovely shea butter. Shea butter, this soap would be very moisturising anyway, but shea butter is like pouring a bottle of moisturiser into your soap. Very, very creamy. The skin will love it. And we only need to add 30 to make a big difference. Okay, not quite that much. Just a small bit of shea butter, pop that into our saucepan. And now I need our lovely solid oils to melt. So I'm just going to pop it onto a low heat just so that they turn liquid. So that's all the hard oils melted. So the coconut, the shea butter and the palm oil have all merged into a nice golden liquid. And I'm going to add 227 grams of olive oil. And mix that together. So my saucepan now contains melted oils. And I need to add the lye solution to it. Now, a very good habit to get into. When I pour the hot lye into the hot oils, there may be some form of reaction in my saucepan. So I always just pour a tiny bit in. And if it doesn't start fizzing up, then I know the temperatures are right for me to merge the two. There was no reaction in there. And now I'm going to stir until we get to the next stage. Do you know, water and oils don't really like to mix together, so I need to keep stirring it to make sure that they stay together. Now, depending on the temperature of the air and the temperature of the oils, this stage might take you, well, anything up to 3 days of stirring really. So I'm going to speed it up by using a handheld blender. And I just now need to stir it like this until it reaches a stage that we call light trace, which is like custard. Right, that looks like it is done. Nice and thick and looking very much like custard. And when I drizzle a little bit across the top, it sits on the surface before floating back into the soap. So that is a light trace. As we're making goat's milk, this is the right time to add our goat's milk powder. Now, of course, you may have goat's milk, the liquid version that you want to add. And you could add this at the same stage. I'm going to add 2 spoonfuls, just sprinkle it across and then stir it in. But when you're adding liquid goat's milk, it does start to scald and burn and has a rather nasty smell. So what we always recommend is that you freeze your goat's milk in ice cube trays and then add your frozen goat's milk at this stage. It'll melt, but it won't burn, so you don't get that horrible smell. It is possible to add your goat's milk to the lye at the beginning of the stage, but you will definitely get a burning smell then. There. Beautiful. The goat's milk powder has blended into my soap base beautifully. I'm going to add the essential oil. I've chosen orange essential oil and I love the fresh smell. There's quite a lot of orange oil I'm putting in here. I've got 14 grams, which works out at about 2% in total. You could put in less, but you would notice a much faded smell. Oops. So pop that in there. Enjoy the aroma as it comes out and stir it round so that it's completely blended into our soap. Okay, I think that's blended in well. I can't see any traces of the orange oil. Now the soap's ready to pop into the mould. The mould I'm using is a plastic lunchbox type mould, but actually there are many things you can use. Ice cream cartons, orange juice cartons. My favourite is the base of a double cream display that they have in Sainsbury's or Tesco's. Make sure we get all the soap out. Bash it down a bit so it fills up every gap. Now at the moment it doesn't look much like soap. What we're going to do is leave it for 24 hours wrapped in a towel or a blanket to keep warm. My soap has been under blankets for 24 hours. I can now take it out of the mould. And even though it's lye soap, it's not at all caustic anymore, otherwise I wouldn't be touching it. My soap's not quite ready for use. I need to leave it somewhere either as a whole block or cut up into slices for about 4 weeks, just to allow the lye to completely mellow into the soap, making it soft enough and moisturising enough for my skin. And that's how you make lye soap.